Chainmail, the solo wargaming guide way. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Broman Empire. Today, we are going to do three things here on the channel. We are going to figure out what happened in the aftermath of the Battle of Pink Phantom Hills. Then we're going to take a look at the strategic map and see where our next battle is to be fought. And we'll go ahead and identify the forces, and we'll lay out the terrain so we can get rolling. The first thing we have to look at when we talk about the aftermath of the battle, and bear in mind that this little tabletop battle that we fought out in the Pink Phantom Hills it's just a slice of a much larger picture. The first thing we have to look at are the cavalry, as a matter of fact, because in a battle like this, once the fighting subsides and the victors have driven the defeated from the field, that's where the light cavalry comes into play. The foot sloggers have been going at it, shoving each other back and forth, resisting the heavy cavalry. They're tired. They're exhausted. Oh, the other guys ran away? Great. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have a drink. I'm good. I'm just glad to have survived. Meanwhile, if you're doing your job right as a general, your light horse has been preserved. Now, you keep them on the battlefield so that they can lend that little bit of extra pressure to an even fight to tip the scales in your balance. But ideally, you don't need them for that, so that when the battle is over, they are available to go run down the survivors. Light horse are fresh. They've been sitting there. The guys sitting on the horses have been watching all the bloodshed. They're eager to get involved. They're like, hey, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back home and I'm going to tell the wife that I watched the whole battle from a distance? I don't think so. They're eager to get some of that action too. And let's be honest, some of that fat loot. So when the opposite line breaks, it's their time to shine. However, the other side gets a vote too. Their cavalry is doing the same thing. In this case, the orcs lost the fight, but they preserved their cavalry. And so the surviving cavalry can act as a screen. If the orcs had managed to retreat surviving foot troops, spoiler alert, they didn't, off the battlefield, those foot troops can still survive because they are protected by a cavalry screen. In the case of the Battle of Pink Phantom Hills, what we saw last week is that all of the orcish cavalry escaped. All of the Broman cavalry escaped too, but when we say escaped, what we really mean is they ran away. Now, they ran off to the south. So what that means is, because the armies came from north and south, the light horse ran off to the south. They're going to be badly out of position, and all of the orcish cavalry will escape. Moving forward in future battles, if you have a situation where there is a preponderance of cavalry on one side or the other, and you've got foot troops that have routed off the battle map, then what can happen is you can adjust your casualty rates to reflect that. That said, let's take a look at the casualty rates for this fight. And here's how I track casualties, because it does become important in later stages of the campaign. Remember that when you are doing campaign games, you have to consider the full ramifications of the campaign during every turn of each individual battle. The reason the cavalry escaped in this case, made the decision to leave the battle before the game was over, they made that choice knowing that there is a second orcish army headed to the south. If they can link up with that army, they can lend their strength to that second army of cleavers. We may be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So let's step back and take a look at what happened to the forces of Latora Khan. Of course, led by General Khaleb Gaines. Here's our little list, and here's how I keep track. See if we can get you to focus in a little bit better there, camera. There we go. So here's our starting roster. We had about 1,300 heavy foot, 160 light horse, and 200 medium horse. The heavy foot suffered 550 killed in action. 740 prisoners were taken by the Broman Empire. The light horse suffered 60 dead. And 100 of them were able to escape. So, oh, look at that. So their numbers were reduced. The medium horse, they all entirely escaped, okay? So that's kind of our survivors. What that means is we have a force of about 300 cavalry that are headed up through the woods. And I haven't measured this out yet. We'll take a look at that in a second. But they escaped into the light woods. For the Bromans, they have to spend a day. Now, the battle took place on the 28th. Oh, 625. This battle itself took place on the 28th. They're going to have to spend a day on the 29th dressing wounds, resting, getting ready for pursuit. They send the prisoners over here to Hobfort, where they will be marched down to Heavingford. And so I wrote that down. We've got, now remember our 5-to-1 ratio, 740 heavy foot are prisoners. So there's 740 orcs down here at the port city of Heavingford. Maybe they'll be sold into slavery at the end of this campaign. Maybe there will be a prisoner exchange. Maybe the orcs will trash all of the human forces and they'll be able to race down and rescue these 750. Okay? But one of the things to be aware of is that this reduces the number of troops available to the Broman Empire by 150 because they have to escort all of these prisoners down to Heavingford. In addition to that, because they won the battle and controlled the battlefield, the Broman Empire is able to recover their wounded, and that is another very important consideration in a campaign like this. So as you can see, going into the battle, the Bromans had 200 archers. They had 100, and they lost all 200 in the fight. These two stands of archers represent 200 actual men. Those two stands were wiped out. Generally speaking, I will consider half of those killed in action and half of those wounded. All of the wounded are going to have to make their way to the nearest settlement, or they'll have to establish some kind of a camp. In this case, that will be Hobfort, which is just a day's hike away. So the wounded are taken over to Hobfort to recuperate for 2 weeks. They will be available for campaign movement on July 12th. Likewise with the light foot, where we started with 400 and we lost 300 of those. Meaning 150 are dead. They're out of the campaign. 150 are at Hobfort. And we have an effective number of 100 light foot left over. Likewise with the heavy foot, we lost I think it was like 1, 2, 3, there's like 6 stands. So of those 6 stands, or they took 3 wounds, right? 3 red chips. So that means we had 75 killed, 75 wounded, and our effective is 2190. And then we didn't have any injuries to the armored foot or the light horse. Remember, the light horse ran off, but again, they are in home territory. They escaped to the south, which is safe. Oh, I should point out, one mistake that I made, the light horse for the orcs, when they fled the field at this point, they were facing this direction. They could have been pursued into the Godspring River. Technically, okay, half of them would have drowned and maybe they didn't all escape. Because they're light horse, they're really quick. I allowed them to escape off the north edge of the map. Is that strictly in speaking with the rules of Chainmail? Maybe. Maybe not. I'm going to allow it. Keeps things interesting, and we like interesting. So at the end of the day, the delaying force for the orcs was able to cost the Broman Empire all of their archers, most of their light foot. They didn't do a whole lot of damage to the heavy foot. Would have been nice if they could have scored a few more wins there, but it also reduces their effective number by 150. So this effective number should actually be 2040. I'm going to make that change right now. Ooh. I don't know about this eraser there, guys. Oh, there we go, 2040. Because even though they didn't lose that 150, they're no longer effective. Now, that's going to be a problem for them because the next force that they're going to have to face will be these cleavers who are right here as of the 28th and heading south in this direction. Okay? Let's take a look at the cleavers. Let's see how many boys they're facing. So again, remember, we're looking at about 2,000 foot for the Bromans, and for the cleavers, you are looking at 2,500 foot, plus about another 1,000 support troops, including 700 horse. The Bromans have 1,000 horse to the cleavers, 700, but wait, there's more. Remember, you're going to have to add these 300 horse from the terrors are going to link up. So you're going to have an equivalent number of horse, but you're going to be outnumbered 2 to 1 when you face these guys. Or are you? Because remember that the Bromans have another army right here. The army of the north is slowly making its way. Now, the army of the north has to decide whether to move through the Darkbriar Woods, which is heavy wood, which is controlled by the elves. I may have a random encounter table where there's a chance if this army goes through the Darkbriar that they may run into an elvish force that says, get off my lawn. I don't know. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. I think you understand where we're at with respect to the aftermath of the Battle of Pink Phantom Hills. We will have to decide in 2 weeks, all of the guys at Hobfort, do they follow up or do they stay in and defend Hobfort? When you have a battle for a town or a village, that is considered a siege. There's a different operational procedure that you go through to sort that out. In fine British form, we are going to conduct all of our warfare where two maps meet. There's a little bit of uncertainty here as far as distances are concerned. Remember that we have a lovely move chart expressed in hexes per turn. Each hex in this chart is equivalent to a 1/4 inch on our map, and as you can see, when you're moving through the light woods, infantry can only move at a 1 hex or a 1/4 inch per turn. Off-road, they can move twice as fast, and cavalry can move 4 hexes per turn. That means that on the 29th, when the Bromans are licking their wounds, the Orcish cavalry are able to make it to here. This is only a 1/2 inch. Not only that, they're going to be basically about here at the end of the day. And then they're going to be able to move a 1/2 inch per day. So if we take a look, it's going to take them, so that's on the 30th, and then on July 1, 2, 3, and then, yeah, we'll call it back up to a full inch. So by July 4th, that cavalry unit will be right here. Okay, just inside our view. That's fantastic. So, as I said, the Bromans are going to spend the 29th licking their wounds. They'll spend the 30th getting to the woods. And then, by the time the 4th rolls around, 1, 2, 3, 4, they're only going to be right here. We're going to stop right there. So we'll say the Army of the West is right here on 7-4. Then you have to look at where the up here just south of Brojro, that's the cleavers. Now the cleavers aren't just cavalry, they've got ground pounders, so they're only going to be able to move at a 1/2 inch per day. And they that means on the 29th, 30th, 1st, 2nd. All right, so they on the 2nd will be here, and actually it looks like, so if we reevaluate this, we are going to have the entire force hook up here at Kazdraj Ven on July 3rd. And they're going to be able to pick the location. They're going to have the advantage here. So let me go ahead and put the cleavers here on the 3rd, okay? And that's where we're going to pause the action on this western side of the battlefield. We can pull back a little bit and decide, now we need to figure out, what are these guys going to do? Remember, it takes a full day to cross the Godspring River. Are we going to send them north through the Darkbriar? How many days would it take to cross through the Darkbriar? Now, the Darkbriar is heavy woods, which, does you move even slower through heavy woods? Infantry move 1 hex per turn. The difference is cavalry only move 1 hex per turn through heavy woods. So if we wanted them to move through the heavy woods, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be a full week to get through. 29, 30. So they're not going to arrive near Agok Ui until 7-5 if they do. And it's going to be 7 chances to encounter the elves. So the question is going to be, what are the chances that they do encounter the elves? I'm going to put a little note here that the Army of the North will be here on 7-5. And that does become important because the orcs in Kazdraj Ven will notice them, and now this army has to contend with 2 armies. Right? The orcs now have 2 forces that are knocking on the doorstep. The good news is they have the Great Khan, who is sitting here on the 25th, and the Great Khan is waiting to see what's going to happen over here on the eastern part. And this is where our next battle is going to occur, I think, because the Army of the East moving at, and the army of the biters, this is where they are on the 28th, moving at the same speed. They're going to meet right in the middle. They're going to meet right here, and this is where our next battle is going to be conducted. The Battle of the White Hart Wood. Now, I'm not going to call it the Battle of the White Hart Wood, so let's take a look at who that is. That's the biters. That is Warlord Garnskar is going to be meeting General Sam Guest. And if we take a look at the size of these, it looks like the Broman Empire is in trouble because the biters have, oh no, maybe this will be a smaller fight. It looks like the biters are going to have about 1,100 infantry, 600. Well, all together it'll be 1,500 infantry and 600 cavalry. Where the Army of the East is going to be 1,360. Wow, look at that! It's actually going to be about 2,000 versus 600. So about a 2-to-1 advantage in foot to the Army of the East. That may give the Great Khan some pause. Although, to be fair, the Army of the East does have to deal with the Nashers, who are hard on the heels of the biters. This may be a delaying tactic for the Broman Empire. If these two armies are able to paste the Army of the East, they may decide, hey, you're going to go steal our artifacts over here at the hill? Then maybe we'll just come down here and trash East Blagton. The fact that there are 3 houses, we'll move it a little bit so you can see, those 3 little houses there in the village mean this is a C-class village. It does have a village wall. The E-class towns like Tyrodale, oh, do we have any on here? We don't have any. Like Thistlebury, Dunburg, this is an E-class, no walls, very easy. We'll have to do a proper siege in East Blagton if that's what these orcs want to do. But again, we need to figure out if General Sam Guest has a few tricks up his sleeve. And we need to figure out what day is this going to take place on. Well, it's going to be on the 28th. They're here, so 1 hex will be 29, 30. So on July 1, we're going to fight a battle between the Nashers. It's not the Nashers. It's the biters. And the Army of the East. Let's take a look at the terrain here in the White Hart Wood. We are going to zoom in to this little corner of the White Hart Woods now, and we're going to zoom in using our handy-dandy deck of playing cards. This battle will be named after the most recent commenter on the channel, which was a commenter by the name of Elizabeth Barron. What? Girls aren't allowed in here? Nothing personal, ladies. It's just, you know, the cooties. She slipped through the cracks. She managed to get one in on me, so, you know, the rules are the most recent commenter on the most recent Chainmail battle at the time of filming is the one we named the battle after. So we are going to call this the Battle of Baron Elizabeth. But I don't know Baron Elizabeth what. It depends on what our terrain is. And to refresh your memory, we go with the card-driven selection from, again, William Sylvester. Gives us a wonderful little tactical level here in the book. And we're going to change things up a little bit. Because we are in the light woods, instead of using the terrain that he offers us, we're going to make a couple of subtle changes here. Any jacks that we are dealt out are going to be treated as a marsh. And any kings that are dealt out, instead of being grassland, are going to be treated as a hill with light woods. See, so we have a little bit more light woods. As always, however, because these are light woods where we're having this fight, we're going to stick with black cards are going to be the terrain items, and the red cards will be just generally open ground. So we deal out a 4x4. This gives us each of our quadrants for this battle, and look at that. We got hill with light woods as is. We kind of adjust over here a little bit, and as you can see up here, so we'll draw. This is, again, remember, this is kind of the rough sketch. I'll clean it up and we'll come back. We've got a jack and a 4. The jack is going to be a farm. Oh, it's going to be Baron Elizabeth Farm. We have an actual settlement right up here. That's the farm. And then this 4 here on our list is going to be heavy woods, heavy wood, and then coming across we got a pair of black 9s. That'll be one big light wood here. And then we've got an ace, which is a hill. The joker is a wooded hill. And then what else do we have here? Our queen is stream. And again, remember, streams can come and go. There may be a gully that it starts here and flows into the wooded hills here. And then the last piece of terrain that we have is a 7, which is going to be an additional light wood right here. So we've got lots of woods over on this side. And remember that our orcs are going to be coming from somewhere on the north half of the battlefield. For this, we're going to have to come up with some dice. Because one of the things to remember is that armies don't move in straight lines. I mean, they generally do. But once they start getting close to, once they start getting close to another army, then begins the little chess game of jockeying for position. We'll maneuver a little bit over here and maybe come at them from this way. Maybe the orcs maneuver over this way and come at them from this way. So essentially, we need to figure out which quadrant of the table and the orcs are coming from, and then which quadrant the Harmons are coming from. And for that, we will need a couple of d6s. And we'll put some numbers down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Likewise, for the humans, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we could have, if we rolled boxcars, we could have our humans and our orcs coming in from right here. Boy, I really hope that doesn't happen. That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? 5 and a 6. So the humans are going to be coming in from this corner, and the orcs are going to be coming in from this section. I wonder why. So they both of the armies were coming up north, and then made a dogleg racing for something. I guess perhaps the human commander, what's his name? Let's go ahead and personalize this a little bit. General Guest is like, man, we got to go save. It looks like the orcs are marching for Baron Elizabeth's farm. We got to meet them on a crash course, something like that. So we'll probably put our orcs coming in here and our humans coming in there, and who knows what will happen. Let's give a much cleaner sketch, and we'll look at which forces are available, and we'll get them on that cleaner sketch. So here's our roster. As we mentioned, we've got about 2,000 foot and 700 horse on the part of the Bromans. We've got about 1,500 foot and 700 horse on the part of the orcs. This is a meeting engagement. I don't know what's going on over here, but for some reason, these two forces were divided and have now finally raced to meet each other in this very convoluted and complex battlefield. For their part, the Broman Empire did manage to send 3 light foot. You know, I wonder if we should actually call that the light horse. Maybe we should start the light horse over there. Say, hey, race ahead to Baron Elizabeth Farm. Warn her that the orcs are coming to ransack the place. The Bromans were trying to get up to the farm to make camp for the night when they realized they were going to be intercepted. So what I'm going to do in this battle is all of the forces are starting the fight on turn 1 off screen. They're going to have to enter at these locations in column. Both sides have to enter in column. That's going to be a problem because it's going to take longer to get set up. We may have 2 or 3 turns of just jockeying for position. Now, you may be thinking, hey, you know, putting this light foot right here is really unfair to the orcs. You're probably right, but orcs smell bad, so I don't care. The other issue is, remember that the orcs, from a strategic point of view, outnumber the humans by almost 2 to 1. There are 2 armies sweeping down south. I'm going to give the Bromans a little bit of an advantage here, because again, the Bromans are trying to preserve their force. They've got another army of about the same size headed their way. If they have a little bit of a benefit here to kind of balance things out, I'll allow it. It keeps things interesting. And once again, we have illustrated that a campaign-based war game generates far more interesting scenarios with much longer-reaching ramifications than turn 12. The orcs are going to throw bodies at the Bromans. They don't care. Just hammer away. Do as many casualties as possible, because you know you've got another army that is only, look how close these guys are. They're only about 3 days behind. even if the Bromans win, they may wind up staying in this location, setting up a solid defense to take the second wave of orcs on. Wouldn't that be interesting? If the Bromans win, and they have to spend a full day recuperating, then they're going to have a day or two to recover before the second orcs fight. We may use this again. I don't know. Again, we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves. If the orcs completely decimate the Bromans, then it leaves them with an open door to race south and start ransacking East Blagton, Pineland, maybe even Dunburg. Maybe the Eastern Empire gets laid to waste. Let's find out after the Battle of Baron Elizabeth Farm. I'll see you for that next week. Until then, I'm praying for you.